I play Fortnite for 24 hours, but I can't just play normally for 24 hours. That would get boring fast. So every hour I play, I'll be met with a new challenge from the fabulous Challenge Wheel, which will tell me to do some wild things like play solo in squad matches or play with this Joy-Con gun controller. Dang it, dude. Get it. Oh yeah, Joy-Con. I should also mention that not only am I going to be playing this game for 24 hours while I'm losing my touch on existence, but I'm also going to be playing it on debatably the worst console to play Fortnite on, the Nintendo Switch. So not only will I be doing 24 challenges to make gameplay more interesting, but I'll be slowly fading away the longer I'm awake. We got 24 hours to cover, so let's get into it. Oh, by the way, I stream the entire thing on my channel, so make sure you hit that bell notification so you know when I'm live and you can come and hang out. The first hour consisted of me learning new gameplay mechanics, discovering new places on the map, and of course, my first challenge, which was build mode. This might not seem like a challenge to most, but I started playing zero build because I couldn't handle the building sweats. So that's how I roll. I was added to the challenge wheel, but this one was actually really easy. I chose to just not build the entire time. And my teammates ended up carrying me, so it wasn't difficult and time flew by. Mainly because I was having fun with all the new features that they added. And that's what happened in the first 4 hours too, as this still just felt like a normal gameplay session. My second challenge was no scope or aiming down sights. So I primarily stuck to shotguns, SMGs, and mythics, which by the way, are super cool in this new season. At this point, I was having a great time, and this is particularly because everyone was a Ninja Turtle.
Let's win this game, let's go!
The third challenge was far more difficult. No weapon mods, which meant any weapon that had additional scopes, ammo, or grips couldn't be used. This pretty much meant I was forced to use gray guns until I found a bench to remove mods on the better guns. And yeah, it was hard, but I was still having fun. And once again, my squad helped me get those guns when they found them. All was going well, but then I already started to feel the effects of this long gameplay session. 4 hours in, my eyes started to hurt. This wasn't super bad at this point, but it was definitely starting to affect me. 4 hours isn't uncommon at all for most gamers. But I think the incredible concentration I had to endure while playing this game at 30 frames per second was starting to strain my eyes. Trying to focus on low pixelated players in the distance can be difficult with the low resolution like this. This is actually pretty common. There's a lot of people who can develop motion sickness while playing games at a lower frame rate. But this can also be made much worse when the frame rate is constantly hitching and dropping, which I saw very often. And as someone who gets motion sickness, it was still manageable, at least for now. My fourth challenge also had me doing nothing.
Pacifist mode? That means I literally can't do anything.
My only goal for these matches was to survive. This is the challenge that made me realize some of these challenges could be extremely boring. And while it was fun to talk to chat and try to survive by doing nothing, it made that hour feel long.
Just kind of running around.
But at least I had chat to keep me occupied. So I'm glad I got this challenge early on while I was still feeling somewhat awake and alert.
Yo, pacifist friggin' mode, and I won.
And even though I could feel it in my eyes, these first few hours have gone by surprisingly fast. Let's hope it stays that way. Hour 5 was also surprisingly fast. Aside from my eyes, my body was ready. Both my brother and I played a few matches together and spun the challenge of no vaulting or climbing, which wasn't really hard, but it's something I would accidentally do without even realizing, because it just comes by so naturally while I play. So every time I failed the challenge, I would have to knock myself as soon as possible, which added some dynamic spice to the team. 6 hours in, and my legs were starting to feel a bit tired, but it's because I was sitting for so long that they started to hurt. Now, once again, 6 hours doesn't seem like a long time to play a video game, especially for the hardcore gamers. But this is generally the max that I would play a video game in one sitting because I'm on that YouTube grind. The game was still a lot of fun and I was enjoying it, but it was starting to get a little uncomfortable. Ironically, the challenge was that I can't use mobility items, like the new flying mythic. Again, this challenge wasn't hard, but made the game slightly less fun. And after playing for 6 hours, you want things to be interesting. 7 hours in, nothing has changed much aside from the challenge, which is the complete opposite of the last challenge. For this one, I can only use vehicles. This means I had to find a vehicle as soon as possible, and can only move and down enemies inside of it. This was another challenge that just got a little repetitive after a while. It was still fun, but it removed the whole point of doing stuff. It was essentially pacifist mode, except this time I was in a vehicle. I couldn't even really collect guns, so I tried bashing into enemies. And since the challenge was vehicles only, I took it as an opportunity to refresh my brain and play a few matches of rocket racing, as Battle Royale was trying to feel a tad repetitive. Then we got 8 hours in, and I was still sore in my legs and felt a bit of aching in my arms and back. Sitting still on one couch for hours will corrupt a man. This challenge also made things a little more interesting, not limiting the items I used, but instead making me drop any item I killed with. This made for a very unique experience, but overall just made me not try and play super offensive, and more defensive by trying to dodge potential battles and using my worst items first so I could try and save the good ones for later. It was at this point I found the challenges a little more helpful to stay engaged with the game. Still, I would have just preferred to play normally, but it gave me something else to make the stream more entertaining for viewers. At the 9-hour mark, the The only thing that changed this time around was the challenge wheel forcing me to use gray guns only, which sounds bad, but was surprisingly fun. And we actually did surprisingly well despite this limitation. 10 hours in and we finally got a challenge that could only be done on the Nintendo Switch, by needing to use the Switch's split Joy-Cons, which might sound easy, but have you seen these things? The tiny analog sticks, the overall size, and the needed gyro made this way harder to play. And I say gyro because you should be counting on gyro for any sort of gun action you want to get. Trying to slightly move the right stick is pointless because it either goes too far or not far enough. Now, I've said in the past that sometimes I prefer Joy-Cons because it's easy to use, and if you use gyro, this is the way to go. But after the past 9 hours of me playing the Nintendo Switch Pro Controller, this is not that good. And I strongly recommend you just use a Pro Controller. If you only have a pair of Joy-Cons, then sure, use them split, but maybe it's time to invest into a Pro Controller. Oh, and my back was slowly starting to dwindle away. 11 hours in, and the new challenge was to use shotguns only. Once again, this at least allowed me to play somewhat normal, but also removed the ability to experience the game fully, and made me rethink the way I normally play and play more offensively to get closer to enemies so I could actually contribute to the team and get some kills. Thankfully, it's a little bit easier now that I have a few friends in the room playing with me and hyping me up in person, but the previous issues are still present and my back is still hurting and limbs are feeling weak. 12 hours in, the challenge this time around was really interesting. No reloading. Every time I emptied a clip with a weapon, I couldn't use it anymore, so I had to drop it. This made the start of each match incredibly hectic sometimes, because if I used all my bullets downing someone, I'd have to switch weapons to try and deal with other teammates. So really the play was that if I downed someone, I'd have to hope that whatever they have could replace the gun I had dropped. While I was initially worried about this was actually surprisingly fun and allowed me to experience everything mostly like normal. And it got really intense when I had two people in front of me and I had to quickly switch the weapon after I knocked someone. The only thing making this harder than it should be was that my back was hurting because of the soft couch I've been sitting on, and I started to develop a headache, probably from the low frame rate. Eyes weren't meant to be looking at 30 frames per second this long. So over halfway through at 13 hours, this challenge was super easy. No vehicles. I mean, I say it's easy, but I accidentally walked into a vehicle several times that made me need to end myself. In the grand scope of things, this was an easy one. Once again, the only thing that was primarily wrong was the fact that my body was slowly getting more and more angry at me. My back almost combusted too, and I changed my seating position so I wasn't slouching on the couch like an idiot. And even though I was playing on Switch, I was still having a good time. 14 hours in, and although it's fine on Switch, I was dying to play on a current gen console, since I was watching my brother and friend play it on theirs while next to me. I felt like I was watching people eat dessert while I was still finishing the veggies on my plate. I was craving 60 frames per second, or 4K, but I'm stuck with a chucking 30 frames per second at 880p. Anyways, the current challenge was the worst, and practically impossible. Play with one hand. Not only was this frustrating to try and play, but it was pretty boring because of how little I could do. We won.
Hey. No way.
Yeah, I don't know how, but we were able to get a dub even with my teammates deciding to join in on the challenge and only using one hand as well. Also, Santa delivered pizza as well, so that helped. I didn't beat him up this time. Also, my controller fell on pizza, and I'm gonna forever cringe. Ugh. Almost 15 hours, my mind is slowly slipping from reality. Not only has my headache gotten worse, but my limbs are still numb. This challenge was pretty easy, which was just no shields. But the next challenge is one that I had been dreading. Hour 16, I could only use pistols.
Dang.
Which was the worst! Not only did I have to try and find a pistol, but I had to use a pistol to defeat an enemy. This was just annoyingly hard, because unless you have a scope, it's not the easiest to be precise. And even if I was being precise, it's a pistol on Switch! The hours are starting to feel a lot longer at this point, and the fact that so many guns were missing from my game just made it feel very stale. On top of that, my headache is ever increasing, and I don't want to look at a 30 frames per second game anymore. And I was also starting to feel tired, not from playing the game, but I was getting fatigued mentally. Hour 17, no healing in game. I specify in game because if I was trying to heal in real life, I would have had to stop playing. Because at this point, I'm really wishing I could just go to bed. Thankfully, this challenge wasn't hard, but my ears have started to hurt even with the volume low, and my neck feels like it's come loose and has contributed to the headache I'm experiencing. So this is what it feels like getting old. Hour 18, and I've hit a burst of energy. Finally, the G Fuel kicked in, with a new friend by my side as I completed the challenge of emote in real life after a kill. Which means I had to emote in real life, after I kill someone or someone kills me. This was the hardest challenge of them all because it exudes cringe. Normally this is just something I do when no one's watching, not when I'm broadcasting it to my entire YouTube audience. So having to do this in front of people and have it stay in the internet will haunt me. But there's an easy solution for this challenge. Don't kill anyone. And even easier, don't die.
Yo, get in the camera.
Yeah!
I've never hit a gritty so hard. The hardest part about this challenge is that if I'm about to gun down 2 people after I pop a cap in the first person, I'm left wide open for the second enemy to attack me while I do the jubilation. All jokes aside, this gave me more energy than a caffeinated prime would. I assume. I've never actually tried a prime. I honestly prefer my packages to come later anyways. I was in pain, but it did distract me at least. Hour 19. My next challenge was a great distraction as well. Solo queue. I must blast enemies in a squad match by myself, and I did surprisingly well. I didn't win, but I did get close a couple times. It was funny seeing my body get stomped by a ravenous squad. The biggest issue at this point was my physical body. It was here that I started to feel nauseated, and my ears and head have merged into an amalgamation of pain. What did Santa put in this pizza? 20 hours in, and the challenge this time around was one of the most unique ones. Joy-Con gun. Remember those old plastic gun accessories for the Wii hunting games? Well, I'm happy to show that they made them for Joy-Con. I'm not sure what games support them on Switch, but it's gotta work here, right? By putting one controller on top to act like a grip and one on the bottom to simulate the trigger, I was surprised how right this felt. Like when you aim with the left trigger and have the gyro enabled. You can literally point this like an actual gun. Obviously, this will never be the new meta, but it's an interesting discovery that I'll never use again. We did surprisingly well, but I think the odd controller placement and the tiny sticks made the path to a victory royale all the more slim. I was also sleep deprived. I still had a bit of a headache, but thankfully, I had another sudden burst of energy, probably because more energized liquid was coursing through my veins. And at this point, I was ready to be done with the Switch version. 21 hours in, and I think this is my breaking point. After reading a lot of comments in my community posts where I asked about playing a game for 24 hours, a lot of people said there's generally a physical limit they hit, and I think I found mine. Even though I'm enjoying the game itself, the fact I know I can play this and have a better experience on my PlayStation is making me so tired of the idea of playing this. I just don't want to sit here anymore. I can tell because I've started talking less, and I've become even less funny.
Yeah, we're in build this whole time.
And my headache came back worse than before. My body was slowly deteriorating as I burned my eyes on this game. Thankfully, the challenge was easier than most. I can't use weapons I previously died to. And thanks to my epic gamer skills, we managed to clutch a few victory royales during this. So I was a free bird. Even after dying, it wasn't difficult because it was only one gun out of a ton that I didn't need to use. But this was the last time I got an easy challenge. Like hour 22, no chests. This means I can only find weapons that were on the ground, dropped from downed players, or vending machines. This made the start of a match pretty difficult if I didn't land on a weapon, but it also completely changes the way someone plays the game. While it wasn't incredibly difficult, I was so tired I completely forgot about the challenge.
Dude, I completely forgot about the challenge.
There was multiple times I would casually open up a chest forgetting about the challenge and then slowly processing what I did and then having to break my leg. It was very late and I could feel it. My headache was worse than it had been. My back was starting to ache again. My limbs felt like jello and I felt like I was going to be sick all while I had this weird pain in my ears. But the next challenge was the one that made me angry. I could only use weapons that killed me, which means I had to find that one weapon on the map that someone used to destroy me. Of all the 23 hours, this was the worst. It took me so long to find that one weapon, and this often left me without a single weapon for the entire match or forced me to use a weapon that was only good in a specific situation. And that's if I remembered to look at what weapon I died to. I kept forgetting to look, and I was just done and couldn't process what was happening. It was too much and I wanted to leave the room. And finally, the last hour, hour 24. Only use weapons from vending machines. I don't know if it was the lack of sense in my brain or if I knew I was almost done and was counting the seconds, but this felt like the longest hour yet. I couldn't find guns and vending machines anywhere. This was an incredibly hard challenge. And again, I kept forgetting what the challenge even was. This is borderline torture. I just didn't want to play anymore. My body was tapped out and I had gone completely mute. I couldn't process what was happening in game. I couldn't fathom the fact that there was daylight outside. I didn't believe that it had already been 24 hours. And it's crazy to think that only a day ago, I had started with a smile on my face. Aside from me being super tired, the whole other challenge was the fact I had to do this on my Switch, because I make videos about the Switch. The main issue with this version is the frame rate. No one likes to play a shooter at 30 frames per second, and a choppy 30 frames per second at that. Like I mentioned before, this could have attributed to the sick feeling I was having in my stomach. The resolution and textures also suck, and that's no fun to look at for 24 hours straight. I know a lot of people have their gripes with this version, but it's a fine port if it's all you have. I did have a handful of issues with it, like when it crashed 3 times.
There's one. No!
Or the wild hitching when zooming through the map. But I think the fact it's here is an insane feat that was clearly carefully put into this toaster. And I got a lot of comments in chat that were surprised about how decent the game looked on stream. There was also lots of chatter about the fact that there was even grass on this version. So you might as well download it if you have a Switch. Just try it out and see what you think. This isn't my primary way to play Fortnite, but it's a great way to play it in a pinch or on a road trip. The biggest challenge though was playing for 24 hours straight. There's a reason people don't stay up for 24 hours. And definitely don't play video games for 24 hours straight. concentrate. It's incredibly hard on your body and can be dangerous. Staying up for too long can make it difficult to concentrate, mess with your brain, and can further ruin your already ruined sleep schedule. And if you do it often, it can lead to heart issues and potentially weight gain. But if you're playing video games, that might have already been on the table. And after this whole experiment, combined with the fact that this happened during daylight savings where I lost an extra hour of sleep.
Dude, it's 3.
No.
Oh, wait.
Oh, yeah.
I felt horrible the next few days, and it took me a while to get back on track. I felt so nauseous afterwards, and it took me 2 days to feel normal while walking. This is just unhealthy to stay up for 24 hours, and especially not moving. So can you play Fortnite on Nintendo Switch for 24 hours? Yeah, but don't. All this to say, this challenge went by surprisingly fast, except for at the end. And I have to thank my friends and brother who sat down there with me to help me get through it. And also thank you to my members for supporting me and also playing with me for almost half of the stream. So hey, if you want a chance to play with me on stream, then support me and become a member. We'd love to have you. And of course, thank you for anyone who tuned in. So let me know in the comments, what's the longest you've ever played a video game for? Also check out my other Fortnite on Nintendo Switch videos. Please consider liking and subscribing. I hope to see you in the next one. See you later.